the game today is all about arguing constructively when it comes to certain themes in Brave New World. Everybody's got a Chromebook. Your warm-up is online. Everything's hyperlinked today. Today's class was about being given scaffolded instruction that'll eventually lead them to a future class where they will be able to do a whole class Socratic seminar, all student facilitated. Be able to have an academic discussion as a whole entire group about the text. We're gonna start by warming up your own brain to figure out what side you are on when it comes to certain themes in the book. So it's more than agree, disagree. Please don't be afraid to put whether you strongly agree or strongly disagree.
What if you're in between?
Ooh, what if you have to pick a side? Come on, force yourself. We study Brave New World because they can relate to the technology part very easily. The language is very challenging, but if I can find, different ends, this is one of the ends, is examining what technology does to humanity. We want to hear from everybody today. We're building to the ending, towards the end of class, where you will be debating and having a moral conversation about genetics, embryos, babies, okay? Up until now, what we've been doing to prepare for this moral reasoning conversation is we have conversations in general. We are not afraid of student talk here. From day one, having to share what you wrote in your journal. From day one, understanding that we are gonna get to the point where we're having whole class discussions. Miss Anastasia, can you read 6?
Human beings can be programmed to certain types of behavior to achieve stability within a society.
Everybody reread it to yourself. The Common Core is asking students to look at all different types of nonfiction texts. And part of being able to examine all kinds of texts is, can you actually have a conversation about the text? Like, can you start there? Can you actually talk and listen? And what I appreciate in the Common Core is the emphasis on listening and speaking. I feel like there is just more attention being paid to a person can demonstrate mastery in an area like this because they can re-say what someone else said. They can paraphrase. And I start first with how many people had trouble with the prompt itself? Anastasia, Zaria, Chris. How many? Oh, whoosh, whoosh. Okay, but let's then talk about the prompt. Let's clarify. Human beings can be programmed to certain types of behavior to achieve stability within a society. Remember in Brave New World, community, identity, stability, and you make connections to those words. Somebody take a stab at what they think this might mean if they had to paraphrase it.
I think it means that you just have to adjust what's going on around you and your surroundings. Because you don't want to be like the outsider or be different for everyone.
Does that make better sense to folks that were really struggling? April, you want to add?
Humans are programmed to think one way in order, to behave one way in order to fit in society, basically.
Okay. What I'm teaching in my class is communication. I want my students to be able to communicate in multiple forms. I want them to be able to articulate themselves orally. I want them to be able to write well. And when they read, I want them to make connections with what they're reading. So, we're warmed up. Go ahead and shut computers for now. After the warm-up and after the discussion, the students then watched film clips. And we watch film clips, in this case, of students from before, because I think that it is important for my students now to see the work of others that came before them. You will be taking notes. We can't watch film clips without annotating somehow. And in your writer's notebook, can you just put brainstorm of norms? That's it. When you take notes, what do you notice about student behavior? What do you notice that they're doing well? Where do you notice that you might do the same behavior? Where do you notice that it didn't go so well, if you see something? Okay? This is my period 4 class, and the Socratic seminar officially begins now.
By me going through the feedback and highlighting it, not only to say they had good presentations, what made their presentations from judges is saying basically their personal experiences made it engaging into including their content in their presentation, which they found they was very passionate about.
Being able to use footage in that legacy style is important, because that to me is, my students see other English language learners that are articulating themselves very well on film, and they know that it's possible. Being able to show student work is so much more powerful than me direct lecturing on anything. That's where we're going today. This type of a conversation. We're gonna do a quick brainstorm. I'm gonna capture the data I'm gonna use Padlet so that we can create a class list across all 3 senior classes. We're gonna look at norms for discussion. So what did you notice?
I see the student trying to give advice to the future coming seniors.
Did you listen?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
Good.
Seen a lot of eye contact, and that's like I don't know. Eye contact means, you know, if I'm talking and I see someone paying attention, you know, and I feel their eyes on me, I mean that means they're engaged and then they actually want to listen to what I have to say.
Mr. Jabron.
Everyone took turn to speak and then cut nobody off. Like nobody didn't feel like what they had to say was bigger than someone else.
What did it mean to you to be able to see people that you knew up on film? You can be honest.
It made me feel comfortable. It made me feel like, okay, if my friends could do it, then I could do it. Or like, basically like my friends were engaging in this conversation, so I could be able to engage too.
We were ready at that point. A lot of prep work to get there so that they could actually have the conversation. I actually choose the groups ahead of time because I want to make sure that there's a balance, that my long-term English language learners, that there's just balance. I want to make sure that everybody has a chance to speak. So it's not just about language ability. I'm looking at personality. I'm looking at gender balance. You are going to start with a quick write. The prompt is, what if you could screen embryos for diseases before they became babies? So that's one of the questions. What if you had the power to choose the traits your baby would have? Would you use that power? What I love is that even a simple like reasoning why still makes you right as a student. You still become a part of that conversation. And as a teacher and in my walk around, I'm particularly noting my English learners and what they're saying, because those are the kids I'm gonna think, you know what, if I brought what they're saying as one of the complexities, when I do that part of it, that kid feels a little bit more special. What they said mattered enough, and so now the teacher introduces it to everybody else. All right, are you ready? Yes. All right, go ahead.
We don't have the power to choose. Only God does. So I think I'm just gonna leave it like that, and it's just gonna be what's gonna be.
I agree and disagree with you, because like if we had that, you know, power, because then people would abuse it. You know, people would make perfect babies every time.
As the facilitator of all of this, my job is to kind of, what am I hearing? Because part of the rounds of moral reasoning conversations is that you throw some type of a complexity in there, a wrench, something that jars the thinking. So here goes. You have 2. They are twins. You got that much so far? You have 1 that has something, some type of a disability, some type of a disease, something that'll just make that child wheelchair bound forever. Okay. Then you have another one that's perfectly healthy. Here's the wrench though. If you were to screen the disabilities, like get rid of this disability here, that means that you're also saying no to this one.
You gotta take that one away too?
This one goes to.
Oh man.
You have a choice to make. You have to choose if you're gonna accept both
Or neither.
or keep neither. Part of it is teaching the students you want to have your perspective and you want to be able to name it and defend it and sit with it. But then that doesn't mean that you don't listen to other perspectives. So part of introducing a wrench is to give them, well, here's this other layer though that we may or may not have thought about.
I wouldn't want my kid to go through life like suffering, like saying like hooked up to like a breathing machine and a wheelchair all life. But like if they were just to a wheelchair, they could still do so much. But like having to breathe through a machine, that's not living.
I have an auntie that had twin, and it was like similar to that. So I'm here like I'm stuck.
Take them?
Yeah, I'll keep both. And the kid with disability, I will take them to a place where there are kids with the same problem.
We're going to go through the moral reasoning conversation a few more times. We're going to look at chapters 1 and 2 of Brave New World and I like to create scenarios based on the text. So when they see them in the text, something's clicking. Like, oh, we talked about this. And then when they actually get to the writing, when they're actually answering analysis questions, then they're just remembering things that they talked about in conversation before that. Wrapping up, last thought, and hold it. Good. Okay, that's where we want Socratic seminars to end. Non-closure, we want it to end on a place, though, where still everybody feels like they were heard. I want to acknowledge the awesome. Well done. That was your first moral reasoning conversation. You're pointing out to them, this is hard. It's expected that you struggle. It's expected that you're going to struggle with defending yourself in conversation. It's expected, so be okay with that. These questions about engineering genes and people. That's happening. So that is our novel. That is our text we're trying to connect to. Structurally, we're practicing the discussion piece, right? Because very soon you will be in full Socratic seminar. That's what we're trying to gear up for. All right, you guys are awesome.